When I was looking to review How to Train Your Dragon 3, I had to really assess the fact that this could not be a standalone review about just the third movie. This is really a great trilogy ender. It's beyond just solely this one film, and I think that it's one of the best ways to close out that could have ever been for this franchise. First off, there are a couple great things that I want to mention here. Not just dealing with Hiccup and Toothless's relationship, but many things that have really been piercing at media recently. You've had a lot of SJW leadership trying to pull deeply into a lot of franchises, ruining them, destroying them, and just affecting them in ways that are very odd, that doesn't seem right. One thing that I can respect about the third How to Train Your Dragon is the fact that they they continued the story and kept it consistent. And they said Hiccup is chief. It is Hiccup's story. He is chief. He needs to go through something in the storyline, but right now, of course, he is chief. We're not going to take that away for some political statement. And when he was dealing with situations, when he was struggling, Astrid was right there to help him, to support him, and to give him feedback and tell him the truth straight up, just as actual relationships are. This was relatable and real. It was not some faked out myth and poor writing excuse. It was real. And I love the fact that while it took 5 years, the writing, it did not underperform. It was still great. And of course, it wasn't only Astrid that was there. It was his friend base, who, funny enough, looked like the second coming of Big Hero 6 in the opening scene. This was a non-stop film. There were not pauses. Everything was... This franchise had so much to do. This team had so much to do in the span of 2 hours to put in so much content that it actually did affect the villain. It did affect a couple of things, but in the end, we have a great film here. We have a villain that kind of gets off too easy when it comes. That Hiccup gets away from a bit too easily, but that's understandable because you look at the fact that the writing is dealing with Hiccup and Toothless having to part ways at some point in the future. Hiccup and Toothless's development. Hiccup and Astrid's development. Hiccup as a leader. And you see all of these things being developed and followed throughout this movie, and you just don't have a lot of time with this villain. You don't have a lot of time to develop the villain. You don't have a lot of time to really have Hiccup going against this villain that is apparently supposed to be worse than the second, even though it didn't show that way. I didn't have a problem with the villain. It's just an obvious issue that people will bring up. While the villain wasn't great, it's the characters that really execute this movie and that make this movie executed well. Every character seems like they've grown or advanced at least a bit since the last time we've seen them. And it's great to see. Of course, this is set a single year after How to Train Your Dragon 2. This is not a big time leap like the last first to second. This is just 2 to 3 is just 1 year. And I love the way that we see them. We see the relationships progress. We see the people progress. We see the way that that Burke is, and that's great. Of course, Hiccup. The general struggle for Hiccup is that he wants to have his cake and eat it too. He wants to have this dragon utopia, yet at the same time protect Burke. And this starts to become a problem. He can't do both successfully. Burke will fall, or the dragons will, one or the other, and he has to make a decision. He decides to leave Burke when this fleet is going to soon appear. This is again the thing about the villain. You have these, you have these moments of dialogue that present him to be worse than the second. But I remember seeing that second film and being truly fearful for Hiccup, for Toothless, for all of the dragons, because that second villain was presented in such a way that was insane and worrisome for this group at Burke. You don't have that here. And again, you have more writing and more time going toward this bond between Hiccup and Astrid and Toothless and his mom and flashbacks to his dad and how Burke plays into it. But not just that, you have, of course, the fact that Toothless is truly a leader. Toothless can't sit around and stay. He has to go out and do big things. He finds a mate. That obviously was the trap set up by this villain, but again, the villain just doesn't seem to be all that important in this storyline. But what we did get instead was we had this amazing relationship that started to just grow with Toothless and the Light Fury. You know, we had this beautiful chemistry. It's great to see, it was good to see the fact that, you have this dragon that was lonely, and you have Hiccup, he's naive at first. He thinks, oh, well, Toothless is going to bring her back, he's going to fix the dragon's tail, he's going to fix Toothless's tail, and somehow Toothless would not just hypothetically stay in a place of freedom. Hiccup did not want to let Toothless go, and that's understandable. But what was holding Toothless back was always this idea that he could not fly away successfully, and now that changed. Now he has the chance of freedom, and he truly does love it. He has the chance of leadership. He truly does love it. And it's great to see. It's great to see this character that doesn't have any real speaking roles, but you understand enough to see that it's great for growth. It's great to see growth. That's just key. That's just wonderful to see. So what we get in the end is this wonderful farewell of a storyline that has been around for 10 years. I recall not really the first movie. The first movie in general I do respect, but I don't think I think the second one is where it matters. The second is where you either go down the route of Shrek 2, which is make a great sequel, or you go down the route of just making a generic sequel that is not good, like a Nut Job 2 or something like that. Instead, Dragons 2 was fantastic. It evolved the characters, and that's the one thing that we have to remember about Dragons. If there's one thing to take away, the one thing that makes this franchise one of the best of the decade and one of the best in DreamWorks history is the fact that this trilogy, and I'm glad that we didn't have to watch the TV shows. I remember watching as a kid the TV shows, but I did not pay attention beyond probably 2012 max. But this trilogy really does hang in there because it keeps the critical things critical. It focuses on the characters. It focuses on the story. It focuses on the world around them. Hiccup wants to find himself. That's been the driving force throughout this entire thing. This has been critical of Hiccup. Seeing this character progress, go through situations that are really hard to deal with in reality, and then not that being translated over and not having some fake Disney Channel-esque solution, it's great to see that it was not so oversimplified. It was instead taken more in the grounds of reality, in the way in which I remember DreamWorks being. DreamWorks was that company that would go in that direction. When I made that Frozen 2 video, a lot of you said, yeah, we have to wait for this movie to release to actually tell the truth. And that's great. That's true. You guys are right about that. But what I saw from Disney is what I remember seeing from DreamWorks as a kid was that they were okay. They were confident in telling stories that were for all ages and not just bent around oversimplifying plot lines. They would make those movies like Megamind and Monsters vs. Aliens, but then they'd go and they'd tell other stories that were also great and beyond simply just going in a direction of, oh, let's keep it that way. No, DreamWorks was that studio that pushed the envelope and made you feel like this is something more, where you watch their movies, specific movies, when you're a kid, you watch them as a teenager, you watch them as an adult, and every single time you learn something new. You watch Nut Job, you're gonna probably not learn much after the first showing. You're gonna learn as much as you did when you were a kid. Maybe a couple dick jokes. That's about it. They don't purposefully integrate this concept of quality writing for quality writing's sake. There's a lot of movies that instead go in the direction that is, we will write a story for the sake of writing a story, but oversimplify it because we can, because we don't have to work hard. And that's the Disney Channel formula. In some ways, that's the Teen Titans Go formula. In some ways, that's the Nut Job formula. And DreamWorks would do that sometimes, but in others, you'd get solid stories that would be timeless. Illumination isn't doing that either. With the end of this franchise, we get the closure of the DreamWorks that was once alive. This is the end. This is the end of the storylines that were so critical and so important back then, back in 2010, back in a DreamWorks era that was monumental in going against Disney and going against other studios, Pixar as well. We don't really have that anymore. Illumination is second really to Disney when it comes to animation theatrical releases. And Illumination isn't really going all that far in terms of their writing. They're playing it safe most of the time. DreamWorks, while they did, they played both sides. They played the, safe, stupid movie side, but they also played this is going to have some pop culture references, some writing that adults will understand, but also quality writing that you'll love when you're older. Quality writing that pays off in the end because you're making a smarter movie for people, kids, adults, everyone. Watching a dumb movie like Trolls doesn't help anyone. It just doesn't. Making that movie didn't help anyone. It helped you kind of financially, but in the mind share, who remembers Trolls, really? But dragons. When you go back, you watch it, you see a bond. You see a bond grow, you see relationships grow. You see how quality writing can work. You see how a franchise, you can see how people, I'm sure the writer's room for that film, the third film, was so just tight. And you can see it in the busyness of this story. The fact that it's nonstop with things going on. And that's not a bad thing. I'm just saying that you can tell that they were so focused. We had to do this, let's do this, let's do this. Let's make sure that we really tell this story. But they focused on the characters. They executed on that. That's beautiful. That's something I respect. That's why I loved DreamWorks. That's why I will continue to love DreamWorks, at least the past era of it. Because at least in Madagascar, you had some stupid jokes. You had some generally stupid jokes. It was okay. Kung Fu Panda, great movie. Shrek 1, 2, great movies. Dragons, great movie. Movies franchise. Puss in Boots, missed opportunity for a great franchise. You have one film. Penguins, okay. But go back, watch them. Peabody and Sherman, go back and watch it. It's great. These are movies that are brilliantly executed that people may not remember, that people will forget because they did not see them. But realistically, you can't drop them. Realistically, I have to. I want to thank the entire, just the writing team, the writers' room, the script writers. But I also want to thank them, but I also want to thank the graphics team, the team that animated this movie. Because the one accidental situation about the How to Train Your Dragon franchise is the fact that because DreamWorks was going through such financial turmoil, it was the one franchise that you got to see that really advanced. You got to see the technological advancement of the studio. You didn't see that you got to see it a little bit in Kung Fu Panda, but because How to Train Your Dragon 3 has human characters, you had the same human character grow and grow, but you had the development of animation, the quality, the research and development over time developed better. By 2019, you see the animation quality compared to 2010. It's night and day. It's incredible, and that's only this franchise really that can present that. You don't have anything else in DreamWorks that really goes that long to prove that, unless you're really comparing Shrek 1 to Shrek Forever After, which is a good comparison because the animation quality did completely shift in that time period as well. So we have another advancement in this trilogy. It's great to see. I really do love it. What did you guys think of How to Train Your Dragon? I'm glad that I finally got this out. It was supposed to be a live stream, of course, but YouTube and bad Wi-Fi and internet stuff. Thanks for watching. As always, stay tuned for more.